So Willem Dafoe, it looks like the Florida Project is going to be one of those little movies that could this year with the reviews and the positive notices from audiences who've seen it so far. What do you think it is about this film that touches people so deeply?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a world that people haven't seen before. I think it's got its element of fun and joyousness to it in the respect that you follow these kids in a very pure way. It's kind of a celebration of childhood, but it also has some gravitas, some content because it expresses the shadow side of that, and that's the parents of these children, usually single mothers, are struggling. Where they live is in a budget motel. They're people that don't have permanent residence, and they're longtime residents at these budget motels that are in central Florida in the shadow of the amusement parks. So it's a very particular world, but I think it has a kind of humanist view that people will be touched by, not only by the children, but also the interaction of the people who deal with each other the best they can in a very challenging circumstance.
Well, I mean, what you're talking about is what's so interesting about the movie is that on the one hand, it's this sort of neo-realistic look at these people who live pretty grim lives, but it is seen through the lens of this young child, and so everything has this sort of almost like a fairy tale element in all of the colors of like the motel and things like that, right?
Right, but then you've got it very rooted in the reality. In fact, we shot at a motel that actually really our story reflects the way these people are living, and some of the people that live in the condition of our story were living right alongside us as we shot.
So tell us a little bit about Bobby, the character you play.
Bobby's an interesting character. He runs the motel. He's the manager of the motel. He lives there. He's not much different than the people that are living there, except for he's in a position of authority in the respect that he has to keep the motel running. He's responsible to keep everything, legal, everything paid up. So, but the main thing is he wears a lot of hats. He's a complex character, and he has to deal with all the different residents in lots of different ways. So he's part father figure to the children. He's part janitor. He's part policeman. He's all kinds of things. And with each person, the way he deals with them is quite specific and he has different strategies for different people.
Like you said, he is like a father figure for these children. I mean, particularly you look at these kids who don't have fathers in their lives, and their mothers had children very early on in life, almost too early in some ways. Can you talk about the ways in which Bobby is like a father figure for these children?
Well, the kids are running around. This world deals with families living in the size of a motel room where most of the space is taken up by the queen-size bed, a very small bathroom, and a little area for possessions. It's a very cramped environment. So the kids, in particular since it's Florida, in particular since it's summertime, they're outside hanging out, getting into trouble, raising hell, grifting. And Bobby's responsible for the security, not only of the place, but he keeps an eye on those kids. Those kids become his kids. And that's nothing that's written. That's nothing that's specifically expressed. It's just the nature of this is his community, and it's a natural human response to see the need these kids have for not only everything from discipline to cutting them slack, to enjoying them, to he also with the children, he has many different reactions.
Well, there's a particularly powerful moment towards the end. I hope I don't give anything away to people who haven't seen the movie yet, but you know, when child services comes to the hotel to take a look at the young girl's room, and I mean, you're trying to, in the best way that you can, shield her from that. But I mean, you see at the end the sort of limitations that he has in being able to protect her from everything, right?
That's true, and I think, you know, without giving away the end, one of the things that I loved about the character of Bobby is he's not an extraordinarily gifted person. He's not an extraordinary person. I mean, you know, he's a quite normal person. He's a working class guy just trying to make it day to day. But his kind of pride in his work and his kind of optimism against pretty, in a really difficult situation, is touching to me. And I don't think it's candy coated. I think I see this in people. In fact, when I was doing research and I was talking to people that had his kind of job in challenging places like this, the one thing that came through on all of them was they had a pride in their work, and they were always hoping they could, in their little way, make things a little better. And tomorrow was a better day. So in the face of a lot of difficulty, Bobby sometimes is, you know, a portrait of a very average man trying to make things better. And I'm moved by that, because people, it's about people extending themselves beyond their abilities, and also extending themselves to other people, not because it's a conscious altruism or kindness, but just because it's the most natural thing to do, because their well-being affects his well-being. And in this community, that becomes very concrete, and it's not a polemical thing, it's very practical. And you see how that's where the humanness comes in. That's where there's some sort of, you know, it occurs to me that we need each other, we should help each other. Now that sounds very prosaic, but I think the film expresses that in a way that we can relate to, and that we, you know, kind of like everyday heroism and everyday kindness.
And it is so interesting the ways in which your character tries to help this young girl and her mother, who is constantly giving you so much trouble in this motel. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the dynamic between the three of them?
Okay, the main character, Mooney, is 6 years old, and her mother is a very young mother. I don't know what age she is, but she's tatted out. She likes to party. She's trying to make ends meet. She used to work dancing, but she lost that job. She's having trouble finding another job. She loves her daughter. She does the best she can, but she has trouble finding work. So she naturally has a kind of, as a survival ability, instinct. She, you know, is involved in certain grifts and certain illegal things. And Bobby's trying to help her. But at the same time, because she's kind of practiced at feeling, she's alienated and she's practiced at trying to get over on the man, Bobby, in this case, is the man. But he also understands her situation. So he doesn't want to be played by her. So he has to be tough, but at the same time, he identifies with her, and he wants to protect her. So there's a tension about their relationship. It's not as simple as he dislikes her, or he's unhappy with her, or she's a problem. It's more complex than that, because her problem somewhere is Bobby's problem. He takes it personally, and you see that push and pull in the scenes.
And can you talk about, I mean, working with, because the film is filled with so many newcomers, and they give such great natural performances. Can you talk a bit about the working relationship between you and the other actors on set? How you kind of, because it feels so much like there is such history between you guys.
Right. Sean, the way he builds a cast, not only in this movie but previous movies, he always mixes non-actors with actors, new actors with more seasoned actors. He likes to mix it up. and I think that's good because you invite different perspectives, you invite different possibilities for different processes. For me, it challenges me to fit in. It challenges me not to be an actor. In fact, I always want to do a performance that doesn't feel like a performance. There may be rare exceptions in films. Sometimes it will be showy, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of the point. But usually you want to disappear. You want to disappear into the fabric of the world. And with people that are participating in making this world and doing these scenes that have nothing to compare it to, they had such beautiful enthusiasm, and kind of, because Sean sets it up so well and protects them, they weren't self-conscious. They weren't thinking about performance. They weren't thinking about career. They weren't thinking outside of what we were doing. They were really concentrated in giving themselves into, you know, pretending the situation and letting it take somewhere. And that's something that you always want to do when you fight to get that purity, get that innocence back when you're performing. And here I had it in spades among my colleagues, and they were great. And Sean cast it well. Sean protects people. Sean structured things so they didn't have to worry. So they were very free, and of course that made me feel free.
And one of the other great qualities of the film, we touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to talk a bit more about it, was that it has such a specific sense of place. You know, I mean, as somebody who kind of grew up in that area, I thought, well, this feels very authentic, you know. So how did that inform or influence your performance?
You know, I was a guy that ran a motel. I learned how to do things. And when you learn how to do things and you're responsible for the things, it becomes part of, you know, you address different impulses. It changes you. It changes you. I know it's not just a question of empathizing, it's doing. My life changes because I give over to this fiction, this exercise of making this world. And it was so complete because the places we were shooting were actual locations. So they themselves breathe an authenticity that you take in. And pretty soon, once again, you become a part of that landscape because the landscape's authentic.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you, you know, while we still have some time, I mean, you have been around for quite a while, and you've had the opportunity to work with many great filmmakers in your career. I wonder if, you know, throughout working with people like Martin Scorsese or David Lynch or Alan Parker, Oliver Stone, on and on and on. I mean, what are some takeaways that you've gotten, things that have helped inform you in your career now?
Well, I've always been kind of a director-driven, attracted to strong directors, in particular author directors. And in this case, Sean Baker is sort of an author 3 times because he's a co-writer, he's a director, and he's an editor. So you have kind of the point of view in one package, and I love that. I like you know, being the creature of a strong director, being the doer of a strong director. So that's something really consistent. I almost look to directors more than I look to scripts sometimes because scripts change. But when I'm in the company of people whose work I like and who inspire me, I want to serve their vision. And that's always what I feel most comfortable with because that allows me to go beyond myself, go beyond the limitations that you put on yourself or some sort of idea you have of yourself. Because really, when you commit to these people are making things, you take on their needs and you start to address a whole different set of perspectives and needs, and it wakes you up. It gives you another chance at a different kind of life.
And in your career, you've received 2 Oscar nominations for Platoon and Shadow of a Vampire. What did that kind of recognition mean for you in your career?
It's great. In both cases, it helps. It helps. That kind of recognition not only brings more attention to the film, which is the main thing, but also it helps you to have people, creates opportunities for you, because it is a certain kind of, is recognition. It's a recognition by your peers. Also, it just shows an interest in what you're doing, and it helps you when it creates opportunities for you. And in both cases, particularly the first time, because it lifts you out of the pack, it helps a great deal when you're nominated.
Well, I know you've got to go, but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate chatting with you.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good one.